Why am I sharing this information? Why do I post online? So for me, this all starts with my story. So when I was 19 in 2020, I was diagnosed with cancer. It was stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. And at the time, I was a university student playing football. And, that kind of put a wrench in things. As you can see, I would bring my little football t-shirt and my football hat just as a way as a form of motivation whenever I go to chemotherapy or any other kinds of treatment. It's like I'm bringing my team with me. But immediately I needed to do many rounds of chemotherapy and immunotherapy to combat the cancer, along with a total of 2 stem cell transplants, which were both nightmares to deal with. But along the way, I started to lose a bit of trust in standard care, not because there's anything wrong with my doctors or anything like that, but because initially the treatment should have lasted about 6 months, but it wasn't working, having to do more harsher and harsher chemotherapies and stem cell transplants and whatnot. So it ended up lasting about 3.5 years. And a little bit before my second stem cell transplant, where I got told I still had cancer for the second time, and this is 2.5 years into the process, I decided, you know what, I had been learning a lot about nutrition and exercise and lifestyle and how that can help the body heal. And I decided to start using some of those principles that I was learning in my research to myself, because I thought, you know what, this hasn't worked right now. If I can save myself some heartache in the future, I would love to do that. So I began implementing a bunch of stuff against my cancer, and lo and behold, in March of 2022, March 29th to be exact, I got my first negative PET scan, which was huge. But I still had to go through the second stem cell transplant because the relapse rates with the given treatment I was doing at the time were very high. But this led to the biggest transformation I've ever had. Okay. In my final treatment, I had to do a stem cell transplant. And I started off looking like this at about 200-ish pounds. And let me just move this out of the way. I went down to 170. Okay. And this was scary. It was a 30-pound loss. I couldn't eat anything, as you can tell. And I was extremely fatigued. To take this photo, my hand was shaking. I had to steady it as much as possible. So just the phone itself was too much to bear at the time. And so in order to recover from this, I had no choice but to take my own health and recovery into my hands and figure it out. I thought, it's helped me this far with my nutrition, with the exercise and that lifestyle interventions that I had learned. I might as well use it to heal myself. And within 7 months, I was able to make a complete turnaround from this at 170 pounds to this at about 200 pounds. Okay, I gained the 30 pounds of muscle back. I had regained my energy, so I no longer needed to take extensive naps throughout the day. I used to have to take 2 or 3 naps just to get through a full day. I felt like I was back to normal. I could eat normal foods, and it wouldn't upset my stomach. I had energy, I could focus. I almost had life brought back into me. And so I decided, you know what, this has already helped me twice. Helped me first get my first negative PET scan. It helped me recover so well from the second stem cell transplant. Let me dive even further into this to see how I can continue to heal my body with nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle. Okay. Because going through 3.5 years of strenuous chemotherapy, immunotherapy, and stem cell transplants, no matter what you do in the first 7 months, you're not going to be fully healed. Though I did get back into good shape, my organs still needed more support, and that's what I continue to do to this day, because there are still some side effects from the second stem cell transplant that I'm currently working through. And these are the kinds of principles that I'm going to share with you guys today on this call. It's going to be and specifically tailored towards how to break through plateaus, maximize performance, and never have to worry about stagnating progress as we go about our journeys. And again, just to share why I'm even talking about this kind of stuff, is because a lot of people don't know this kind of stuff. No one gets taught. Everyone complains about how we don't get taught around different things about finance, how to manage our budgets, taxes, and all that kind of stuff. In the same way, I believe that no one talks about health in that way. We don't get taught what does good health look like. And so people are in pain and suffering. I look like this after after my first stem cell transplant, but I was one of many. I would walk into a room where there would be at least 15, if not 30 people there at that given time who were suffering in the same way I was. So there's a lot of people in pain and a lot of people suffering. The fact that we need cancer centers to begin with is a testament to the fact that something is broken. And when it comes to the information, only a small group of people know this, which is very unfortunate. The fact that only a small amount of people know it means that no, not a lot of people can benefit from it. So that's what I'm here to do. And the people that know this, I like to coin them as the 1% of health. Okay. And so when it comes to the 1% of health, my goal is to help men get into this 1% of health, this group of people, because this is where you can live a life of freedom and of fulfillment. And so there's three tenets that I like to identify when it comes to the 1% of health. First one is a concept I just call health first, which means in any pursuit we have in life, it's it's always to our benefit to make sure our health is at the forefront and taken care of, with whatever the goal of that pursuit is to be secondary. So for example, say you want to build a business or further your career, it's probably going to take a lot of hours, a lot of hard work, and you're going to be exhausted and stressed throughout the process. So making sure that you have the necessary times for recovery, that things like nutrition, exercise, and so on are taken care of to support you through that journey is important, because oftentimes there are inevitable damages to our health that we will take in life. So it's up to us to make sure we're still putting our health first and taking care to minimize those downsides. Next is relentless self-education and implementation. So like I'll get to at the end, a lot of this comes down to increased level of awareness. When it comes to the 1% of health, I don't like to think of it as people that have a certain blood work markers, certain body fat percentages, they can lift certain amounts of weight. It's about the fact that they have an increased level of awareness. And how do you get an increased level of awareness? It's through relentless self-education. So having a white belt mentality, never feeling like you've figured it out, and then constantly implementing new things that you learn along the way. And the last, but certainly not least, is that health is the gateway drug to a fulfilling life. A lot of people, myself included, will stumble upon this kind of information out of necessity, because now, in my case, it was borderline life or death in many ways. For others, it could just be something that's holding them so far back in their lives that they just can't enjoy life. It's an autoimmune condition. It's low testosterone. It's low energy. They just can't find that fulfillment in life. So they have to start looking at other options and what they can do from a nutritional standpoint, lifestyle intervention, exercise, and things like that to heal themselves. Because they know that once they get through, cross that gate, once they fix their health, they know that on the other side of that, they can do more or less whatever they want. They have freedom and they have the ability to live a fulfilling life. Okay. And all of this, like I said, is through an increased level of awareness. So our goal with this is simply just to increase your level of awareness for the things that you can do with your training, with your nutrition, with your recovery, to make sure that you, again, break through your plateaus and maximize performance. So let's get into the actual meat and potatoes of this call. So first, there are 4 reasons why people plateau in their training, and a lot of them people try to solve them in we all have this mentality. It's a bit of a meatheady mentality, but they try to do more of what they're already doing, and oftentimes that'll just dig a bigger hole. So for example, if they're not getting bigger or not getting stronger, they think I have to do more reps, more sets, or more workouts, when in reality that's probably burning them out and causing overtraining. If they're trying to get bigger, trying to build more muscle, they might think I have to just eat more, but in reality that's also going to be causing damage to the body. So again, it's failing to follow on the health first principles. Or if they're dieting, they will just cut calories so severely to the point where they made progress early on, but then their body starts to resist, and they cut calories even further and even further, and then they just feel terrible to the point where they say, this is not worth it, I'm going to go back. When in reality, the pursuit was worth it, but the implementation was incorrect. So we're going to get into the 4 big reasons why people plateau and what you can do about it. So first and foremost is disorganized training. A lot of people will go into the gym and have no structure to the workouts. They pick exercises at random. They'll say, oh, it's a chest day, so I'm going to do maybe some bench press, maybe some, cable flies. And, oh, I see that big guy over there doing that machine. That looks cool. I'm going to go do that. And they think they get a good workout in. But this is wildly inefficient. It's difficult to track progress. And so it's essentially that you're failing to plan, which is planning to fail. Right? If you have no structure, you don't know how you're progressing, you don't know what you need, you don't know the minimum viable dose to progress. And also it's tough to progressively overload when you don't have a base standard for what you need to do on any given workout. Basically, you'll end up as confused as our friend Gronk over here. So to combat this really, really simply, you need a set program to follow, something that every day when you work out, you know exactly what exercises to do, how many sets, how many reps, and how long it should take. And then from there, you can progress. But this takes us to the second mistake, which is when people have a set plan, but they never change it. They keep running the same plan over and over and over again because they think it works once, so it'll work forever. And in most of these people, they will, like just like this graph, they'll experience some benefits early on, but then at some point within the 4 to 6 month week mark, sorry, they will plateau and they'll start to experience diminishing returns, eventually experiencing no returns. And this happens because the body is highly adaptable. One of the big benefits of us as humans is that our bodies are crazy with how well we can adapt to things. But that means that you kind of have to stay 2 steps ahead of your body. If you give it a certain stimulus, say you're doing sets of 3 by 12, for example, 3 sets of 12 reps. If you do that over and over and over again for over 6 weeks, eventually your body will say, I've got this figured out. I don't have to get better. But if you slowly implement phases and change from 1 month to the next, by the time it just starts to master the stimulus that you're giving it, you change up the stimulus and you give it something new. And this doesn't mean you pendulum swing and completely change everything you're doing, but you make these small changes to where your body's like, okay, whoa, 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 what's this? What's going on here? All right, this is different. I got to figure this one out now. And from there, you are able to keep the body on its toes, force it to adapt, because that's what training is essentially for. It's essentially you force your body to adapt to a given stimulus. And then that adaptation is usually in the form of muscle gain, strength, cardiovascular improvements, etc. And then you can move on from phase to phase, so that your body always has to adapt to new stimulus. And by doing that, if you're already in a plateau, if you do that, your body will then be forced to change adaptations. But if you continue running the same program over and over again, then you won't experience the benefits 4 to 6 weeks down the line. Now, there's a level above this, because let's say you have a structured program, you are running phases, but there's still something missing, right? You start to experience the benefits, but you're like, okay, I feel like I could be getting more. Well, part of that comes from a poor nutrition plan. So a lot of this comes down to either not eating the right foods or not eating the right amount of food in the right proportions, right? A lot of people like to think that food is fuel, and so that'll lead them down the route of, consuming foods like McDonald's, where they think, okay, I'm still getting my calories in, I'm still getting my macros in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But food is not fuel. Food is what you become. Okay. And one thing I like to at least tell my clients is high quality food leads to high quality outcomes. Junk food leads to junk outcomes. Because when we talk about getting in the right nutrients, getting the right amount of protein, fats, micronutrients, and carbohydrates, it's much harder to get it when you are consuming foods like this, where it's full of processed chemicals and preservatives and additives, as opposed to whole foods, which are not only easier to digest, but they're more nutritious as well. If you were to substitute this for even a homemade version of a burger and even fries, you'll get a lot more nutrients out of that. But if you were to substitute this for just regular steak or ground beef and maybe a sweet potato that isn't deep fried in seed oils, then that's like an even bigger step above. Okay. So we want to make sure that we have protein in our diets, fats, carbs, micronutrients in adequate doses. And I'll explain more how this would look like when I go through my own program and give a bit of behind the scenes. Now, one final one, you have the program set, you have the phases set, you have the nutrition set, but you're overdoing it and you have an inability to recover. This is probably the one that gets most experienced lifters. They think that they can handle more than they really can. And so they end up like this guy, sad in the gym. So the first thing we want to understand is you don't grow in the gym, you grow when you rest. This is huge, because when you understand this, you understand how important rest plays. You don't actually build muscle in the gym. You stimulate the muscle in the gym. And as a result of that stimulus, afterwards, when you rest, that's when you adapt. So it's important to have things you do for your recovery on a daily, weekly, and monthly plan, okay, as part of your recovery. So on a daily basis, the king is sleep. Making sure we're getting enough sleep is crucial. I know you said you just took a nap. That's spot on. So, and then on top of that, you can have downtime as well. So this is non-stimulating downtime. Maybe you're having a meal with friends, maybe you're reading a book, maybe you're out for a walk, things like that. But the biggest one that I know everyone messes up on, and it's one that I do my best to not mess up on, it's very easy to, is sleep. Next is days off, active recovery days, and warm baths. So this would be on a weekly basis. It's always good to have a day off. It's not lazy. If you have a day off, it means that you are taking intentional time to recover so that you can be more productive later on. Active recovery days are becoming one of my new best friends, where it's you take a lighter day, you still train, you still do something in the gym, but you take a much lighter day, which allows the bigger muscles to recover from the more taxing workouts. These are becoming some of my favorite days, and I'll get into what that looks like when I show my program as well. And the third one is warm baths. These are already one of my biggest friends. Basically, 1 or 2 times per week, I will take a warm bath. It's either 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit, water for about 45 to 90 minutes. And what this does is it puts the body into overdrive to heal. And so any sore joints, any sore muscles, anything like that, it will go through and it will heal that. I often notice one of the side effects I have from the stem cell transplant. The second one is that I have issues with my hip. There was dead and dying tissue inside there, so it's slowly recovering. And sometimes it can get a bit sore from the gym. But when I do a warm bath afterwards, it increases by like the pain goes away almost completely, and there's almost no soreness. And so I'm ready to go the next day, which is very, very convenient for me. I didn't know that it would benefit my hip this much when I first tried a warm bath, but the fact that it does is mind-blowing to me. And then last but certainly not least, on a monthly plan, on a monthly basis, you want to incorporate what are called deload weeks, which is you run a 3 or 4 week training phase, and then eventually you cut the volume in half to allow your body to recover. Because if you've been progressively overloading and taxing your body with the workouts, eventually you're going to have to slow down a bit for a week. Okay. So these are the 4 biggest causes for plateaus and what to do about them. We have the structure, the disorganized workouts. We have the continuing the same plan over and over again and getting nowhere. We have poor nutrition and inability to recover. And so we have also the principles of how to solve this. Well, first you want structure. You want to implement some sort of phase, some sort of a phasic structure to your programs. You want to be on top of your nutrition, getting all your nutrients in. And also you want to incorporate some way to recover in between all the workouts, also your personal life as well when it comes to your work, spending time with family, all that good stuff. You want to make sure that you have some way to rest. Otherwise, you will burn out and it's not fun. So now let's get into what I call the road to the 1% of health, which is currently my big plan to make a massive transformation in the next 16 weeks, technically in the next 12 weeks, because we're already at the end of phase 1. So for me, what this looks like, and I'm going to take all the principles I just talked about and show it in real, what it looks like in my program right now. So obviously when we talk about structure, this is the structure that I currently follow. This is the first half of my week, and then this is the second half of my week. And just to quickly walk through it, I have a leg day, which is primarily for building, it focuses on knee dominant movements. So things like quads and from the squats. And then on my upper day, this is primarily a strength day with less hypertrophy, so like less muscle building focus. And then my third day, which is my active recovery day, like I mentioned, this is where I just do some cardio and I do some hip rehab work. So the cardio is still pretty intense, but it's not nearly as intense as having to do all this stuff. So what this does is it gives me a bit of an intermission between the first half of my week and the second half of my week after that. Now, in the second half of my week, it's a different lower day and a different upper day. Lower just refers to leg day, essentially. And this one is more of a glute and hamstring focused workout where we get some barbell RDLs and things like the hip thrust machine and the incline hip extensions, as well as some sled pushing because it's fun, but it's also more functional movement and it feels great for my hip. Upper 2 is more of a muscle gain focus because it's at the end of the week. I have more time to recover. Initially in this program, I actually had upper 2 on Tuesday, but I found that I didn't recover well enough later into the week. So it's a quick swap I made. And so again, this is where prioritizing recovery plays a big role. If you're going to do any sort of hypertrophy work, you want to make sure that, or muscle building work, which is typically more taxing on the actual muscles, you get more muscle soreness. You want to have that later in the week. And then again, on Saturday, I have another cardio and hip rehab day, except this time I do the assault bike. If you've ever done an assault bike, it's tough. So it's 3 rounds of 5 minutes. And my goal isn't to hit any time or say any distance or anything like that. It's just kind of to survive the 5 minutes for 3 rounds. But that's the basic structure of it. And this way I know what I have to do on every day. I know how to progress it from week to week, because if we're going to apply principles of progressive overload, I know how many sets I've been doing. I know that if I add one more, it'll be a bit more taxing, things of that nature. And I also know what weight increases I have on a daily basis. So the assault bike, glad you asked. So it sounds like that should be the title, but it's even more sadistic than that. Basically, it's a bike where you also have handles that you push and pull. So it's a full body bike essentially, and because it's full body and because the resistance is quite high, it's incredibly taxing on your cardiovascular system. That's a good question. I probably should have clarified that. But yeah, assault bike, basically your hands and feet are moving in tandem as you go about. So that's why it's so tough. And typically people don't do very long assault bike sessions. Some people do, but those people are crazy. People typically keep them short. One of my goals is to get to that level, but that'll take time. Now let's get into the different phases I have planned, okay, and what this looks like in real time. Phase one, the phase I'm finishing up right now, is called Foundations, where basically the goal is to there's two goals essentially. The first goal is to build mechanical efficiency with the exercises, aka focus on form. So that's why a lot of the reason why the reps are so high is because when you do higher repetition, you effectively get more practice in the exercise that you do. So say I'm doing a squat, which is an exercise I haven't done in a while because of my hips. This is an area where I can do a higher rep range and get more practice at doing squats, because the more squats I do with good form, the better I'll be. Something I like to always say is work on the movement and the movement will work on you. So if you spend time focusing on technique over anything, the movement becomes exponentially more beneficial towards you. And then also on top of that, there's a focus on muscle gain here. A big thing I want to do is build as much muscle as possible before I get into my phase 3 and 4, which are going to be primarily strength focused, but we'll get into that in just a second. Elevation is phase 2, and this is what I'm getting into not next week, but in 2 weeks. And this is basically where a big priority is going to be on hypertrophy, so muscle gain, and also starting to dabble into strength developments. So getting into rep ranges of 6 on the lowest and up to 10 on the highest. Phase 3 is where I get full on into strength and where I bring the rep ranges even lower, down to 3 to 5 repetitions. And the reason why this works is the heavier weight you lift with high intensity, the stronger you will get over time, the more you do this. And also a big reason why I want to develop mechanical efficiency and build muscle is to prep for this, because it can be quite dangerous to just hop into strength right away. You're dealing with heavy weights relative to your body, and you want to make sure that you've prepared for that over the course of at least 2 months. And the last and final phase is going to be what they call a max strength phase. So this is where we're going to be absolutely pushing my limits, doing sets of 1 to 3 repetitions as low as possible to get the most amount of adaptation out of me. And because of this, because of the fact that we're changing the stimulus on the body over the course of 4 months, the goal is that I won't be plateauing in this, especially if I incorporate a deload week, which I'll get into in just a sec, in between each of these, and I give my body a rest. That way I won't ever burn out during this process, because once you burn out, it takes a while to recover from that, and you have to be much more careful. And if I'm going to hit the goals that I've set out for myself, I can't afford to have any plateaus or any burning out of any kind. Now, let's touch on nutrition. So we touched on the structure, we touched on phases. Let's get into some meals. Now, this first one, I'm going to ask for an open mind, because it's a banana smoothie on the surface, but what's in it is a bit different. And and I'll preface this by saying on paper it shouldn't taste as good as it does, but in reality it's probably one of the best banana smoothies I've had. So in this, it's a shake I make before I go to the gym. It has obviously 1 banana. It has some coconut cream, some coconut oil, some raw honey, and then also 5 raw eggs as well. And I blend that all together, and that way I get the shake. I typically like to avoid protein powders just because if I can find a way to get all my nutrients in, even if we're going to do like a quote unquote supplementation, but if I'm going to get my nutrients in, I would always opt for whole foods. And this is a great way for me to get a ton of good protein, some good fats, ton of good fats, and some good carbohydrates in one shake. Oh, raw eggs and then raw honey. Yeah, yeah. I think raw if I could sneak in raw onions in here and still make it taste good, that would be impressive. But yeah, this is what I have after my workouts, just because it gives me a ton of nutrients and it also gives me a quick energy boost before I get to work. And then next up, meal two looks pretty much the same. It's around a pound of beef in some form with veggies, avocado, things like that. I know that I'm aiming for about 1 gram per pound of 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So if I'm going to do that through Whole Foods, it's going to require a lot of meat, which is why meal three is more or less the same. It's about a pound of beef or 2 chicken legs or something like that. But typically beef. I really like beef. And some veggies on the side to get more nutrients in. Because remember, I like to prioritize protein first, fat second, micronutrients third, and then carbohydrates at the end. I still think they're valuable. I'm not suggesting that necessarily going keto, but I don't prioritize them nearly as much as the other two, especially for recovery and performance, at least for how I like to do things. Now, when it comes to snacks, I will occasionally have a snack in the middle of the day. It'll either be in the form of fruit, cheese, or on the bottom here, this is kefir, and this is homemade. It's very simple to make. If you get your own kefir pods, I highly recommend it. It's also delicious if you were to make it into a smoothie, blend it with some berries, things like that. It's awesome. So this is typically what a day looks like for me, and this is all for the goal of getting, again, 1 gram per pound of body weight, 1 gram per pound of body weight of protein. So for me, it'll be about 190 to 200 grams of protein per day to get in my good quality fats from the avocados, from the meat, from the coconut oil and cream, things like that. And then micronutrients from the beef as well, but also the veggies like here, the zucchini, the butternut squash, cucumbers, and the assortment of veggies I have here. Then also the carbohydrates, again, from the smoothie and from the berries. I typically like to get my carbohydrates in from fruit or from sweet potato, just because sweet potato compared to white potato is a bit more nutrient dense, so a bit more bang for your buck. Now, let's get into the recovery protocol. I touched on these, but this is going to be more in depth on how I'm currently doing things. First thing is on a daily basis, getting 7 hours of sleep minimum. So currently I wake up at 5:30 to go to the gym. So getting 7 hours of sleep can be kind of tricky sometimes, especially being Greek. We like to eat a bit late. So getting that in, trying to get dinner in by 9:30 at the latest is currently the goal. But 7 hours of sleep, I know that I can recover and I feel good for the next day. Then too, it's having a wind down time at night. So one big issue I know I have is sometimes I'll want to work right until I go to sleep, but then I don't sleep well, and then I don't have a productive day the next day. So I've been being more strict with myself and setting a boundary. And as soon as I hits about 8 o'clock, 8:30, I stop all work and then start winding down for the night. I will turn off these lights. I have warm lamps around my room so that it's much nicer for me to go to sleep. Next two is stretching and doing that before and after workouts. So this is a big thing, especially if you don't want to be stiff. If you're really pushing your body to the limits, you don't want to be stiff before and after your workouts. You want to make sure you're properly warmed up. And so I find this helps me recover even better from one workout to the next because I'm not going in stiff. And then also a daily walk. This is great for the mind. It's good for the body as well to get some light movement in, especially if you're sore and tired. Getting a walk in is phenomenal. Gets the heart pumping, gets the blood going. It's a great thing. Now, I will admit I didn't go for a walk today because I've been prepping for this, but I will go tomorrow. Now, on a weekly basis, we want to incorporate days off. Okay, and for me, that's Sunday, just because I guess it works really well with the current society we live in and how things function on a weekly basis, just to have the Sunday off before Monday. Yeah, but the days off is really important. You need a day where you do as little as possible so that your body can actually recover. We're not meant to be going hard 7 days per week all the time. It's a good recipe to burn out, and I'm not trying to do that, and I don't recommend it. Next is having the 2 active recovery days. Like I showed before, those are the 2 cardio and hip rehab days. For me, these have been a game changer, throwing them in the middle of my training. or the middle of my week to recover better from the first half to the second half, and also have a bit of a change of pace. Going in and just having to do some light hip stuff and then some cardio is quite nice, I will say. And then having a warm bath 2 times per week. So this will be sometime in the week. On a weekday, I'll do it, and then on a weekend, I will get another bath in as well, just before my next week starts. These have been a game changer for recovery on many levels. Now, on a monthly basis, is to do a deload week every 3 to 4 weeks. Now, I say monthly basis, it's roughly monthly basis. And what you do with a deload week is you take the number of sets that you've been doing and you cut it in half. And when you cut it in half, the amount of damage it does to your body, and I say damage with quotations, is much, much less. And so you have less to recover from. And if you keep everything else dialed in as if nothing else has changed, then you will more than recover from your workouts, so that the next time you go to the gym for the following week, typically if you were to have a different phase 2, you would be fresh and ready to go. So for me, my deload week is next week. This week is the final push before the deload week. And then, yeah, next week I'm cutting all the sets in half. And then the following week, I start phase 2.